Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really excited to be bringing you this deep dive from the virtual halls of the Tyrannus Hall Bible College.
It's an honor. And our focus today is, well, it's a huge one. We're taking a critical look at one of the biggest questions out there, the story of human and ape ancestry.
Right. And we're working from a really detailed academic presentation that goes right at the core claims of evolutionary theory. It scrutinizes everything.
It really does. The mechanisms, the genetics, the fossils,
Yeah.
you name it. Our goal today is to walk you through that analysis.
So you can get a clear picture of the foundational choice that these sources present. Is the incredible diversity of life on Earth something that was created by God?
Or is it the result of undirected processes like evolution and natural selection? We're going to lay out the evidence as presented in our source material.
Okay, so here's the roadmap for today. First, we're going to tackle the engine of change itself. We're talking about mutations and natural selection.
Then from there, we dive into the genetics. You've all heard the statistic about how close we are to apes, right? We're going to really challenge that with the latest data.
And then we're going to have some fun with math. Or maybe not so fun for the theory when we look at the probability problems involved.
After that, we'll revisit some of those famous celebrities of the fossil world. You know the ones. We'll see what a closer look reveals.
And finally, we'll wrap up with something really practical. A strategic plan for how we can equip the next generation with these critical thinking skills.
This is all about giving you the detailed points to really understand the origins debate from a perspective that often doesn't get heard. So let's jump in.
All right, let's start with the mechanism. When you see those charts in textbooks, the geologic timescale, it always shows this upward progression.
Exactly. You start with, simple organisms way back in the Cambrian period,
Right.
and it's a steady march up to fish, then reptiles, mammals, and finally us, modern man.
That picture, that upward climb, it implies something absolutely necessary for the theory to work, doesn't it?
It implies a massive non-negotiable requirement. For life to go from simple to complex, you fundamentally need to add new information. Vast amounts of new, functional genetic information.
It's like a computer program. You can't get a video game by just, having a few typos in the code for a calculator. You need millions of lines of entirely new code.
That's a perfect analogy. And in biology, the proposed mechanism for writing that new code is mutation. These are just copying errors that happen when DNA replicates.
And these mutations are generally put into three buckets, right?
That's right. You have the bad ones, the detrimental mutations. They cause disease, they break things. No evolution there.
But you have the ones that don't really do anything.
The neutral mutations, no change, so again, no evolution. Which leaves us with the last category.
The beneficial mutations. These are the supposed heroes of the story. The ones that are meant to drive everything forward.
They're supposed to help an organism survive, have more offspring, and crucially build new things over time. But this is where our sources draw a very, very sharp line.
Okay, so what's the issue? A beneficial mutation sounds like it's adding something positive.
It sounds like it, but the key distinction is whether it's beneficial because it adds new functional information or because it breaks something in a helpful way.
Break something in a helpful way? How does that work?
Well, imagine you have bacteria being attacked by an antibiotic. The antibiotic works like a key that fits into a specific lock on the bacteria's cell surface.
Okay, so it binds to the cell.
Right. Now, what if a mutation occurs that breaks that lock? The key, the antibiotic, can't fit anymore.
So the bacteria survives. That's beneficial for the bacteria.
It's definitely beneficial for its survival in that specific environment. But did it gain new information? No. It lost the information for a functional protein lock? It's survival by subtraction, not addition.
Ah, I see. So it's adapting by becoming, in a sense, less complex. It hasn't built a new shield, it just broke the docking port.
Precisely. And this is the point that's hammered home by the experts in our source material. Dr. Jerry Bergman, who has a PhD in human biology, looked at the numbers.
And what did he find?
He found that only about 4 in 10,000 mutations are even presumed to be beneficial. And even those rare cases almost always involve this kind of loss of function.
So even the best case examples are still going in the wrong direction for upward evolution.
Exactly. His conclusion is incredibly direct. He states that not a single one of these presumed beneficial mutations unambiguously created new information.
That's a huge problem. If a theory needs trillions of new bits of information, but the observed mechanism has a track record of 0, well, the math doesn't work.
It's a fundamental scientific problem. And it's not just one person saying this. Dr. John Sanford, a geneticist from Cornell, makes the same point.
What does he add to it?
He says, and I'm quoting here, that we have still no known mutations which unambiguously create or add information, not even the ones that are considered beneficial.
Still no known mutations. That's an empirical statement. It's not a philosophical argument. It's an appeal to observation.
It is. And if the very engine of change, the mutation, is only observed to scramble, delete, or rearrange existing code, how could it possibly be responsible for writing the blueprints for a brain or an eye or a wing from scratch?
It seems like it's a mechanism that only works with what's already there.
Right. And Dr. Jonathan Sarfati, a chemist, looked at all the classic textbook examples of evolution in action. Things like bacterial resistance or pesticide resistance in insects.
And what was his conclusion?
He concluded they all demonstrate a sorting and/or loss of information, not the creation of it. We're consistently seeing adaptation through breaking things, not building them.
This seems to go even deeper, though. The sources even question if matter itself can create information.
Yes, that's a point made by Werner Gitt, a physicist. He argues that information itself is a non-material entity. It has to come from a mind.
So, like the words on this page, the ink and paper are material, but the message, the information, isn't.
Exactly. Yeah. And his point is that no empirical research has ever shown that matter, left to itself, is capable of creating universal information. It just doesn't happen. Information requires an intelligent source.
So what we actually observe in the real world is not an upward climb. It's more like a slow downward slide.
It is. And there's a real cost to these mutations over time. A geneticist named James Crow talked about this. He called it genetic load.
Genetic load. That sounds ominous.
It is. The idea is that most mutations, even if they seem neutral, cause a tiny decrease in viability or fertility, a little bit of damage, and over generations this damage accumulates.
Like tiny bits of rust forming on a machine. Each one is small, but eventually the whole thing starts to break down.
Perfect analogy. And Crow's summary was stark. He said, each mutation leads ultimately to one genetic death. It's a process of decay, not creation.
One genetic death. That phrase really sticks with you. It's the complete opposite of what's needed for this upward progression.
It is. And this all leads to what the sources call the power question, which they put directly to you, the listener.
What's the question?
Can you show any observational, empirical evidence for where the vast amounts of new functional information in DNA came from that does not require you to believe it by faith?
Wow. That flips the script.
Yeah.
It suggests that believing mutations can create whole new libraries of code when all we see them do is tear pages out is actually the position that requires faith.
That's the challenge being posed. Let's move on to the other half of that engine, natural selection.
Right. If mutation is the source of the variation, natural selection is supposed to be the sculptor, the artist that shapes it into something beautiful and functional.
That's how it's often described. Even Darwin himself used very active, intelligent-sounding language.
What did he say?
In Origin of Species, he described it as daily and hourly scrutinizing, rejecting that which is bad, preserving and adding up all that is good.
Scrutinizing, rejecting,
Oh.
preserving. That sounds like a conscious being making decisions, like a gardener weeding a plot.
It does. And that personification, that giving of agency to a natural process is very powerful. It's a key part of the narrative.
And the sources we're looking at argue this isn't just a metaphor. It serves a very specific philosophical purpose.
Yes. The philosopher Daniel Dennett is quoted saying that evolution by natural selection replaces God. He saw it as the mechanism that explains design and purpose without needing a designer.
So it's not just a scientific theory about biology. It's being presented as a complete worldview, a replacement for a creator.
It's positioned that way. The biologist Ernst Mayr called it the exclusive direction-giving factor to evolution, the only thing given direction.
And Jerry Coyne said it's the only explanation for complexity. So the message is clear. Selection is the creator.
That is the consistent message. But our sources make the claim that this is all a bait and switch. They call natural selection an imposter.
An imposter? That's a strong word. How do they back that up?
They argue that natural selection is just a figure of speech. It's a label we put on an outcome after the fact. It doesn't actually do anything.
So what's really happening?
What's really happening is that an organism is exposed to an environmental stress. It could be extreme heat, extreme cold, a predator, a drought.
And those things are just conditions. They're not intelligent. The heat isn't thinking, I will now select for heat-resistant creatures.
Precisely. The heat has no intelligence. It's not favorable or unfavorable. It just is. An organism either survives it or it doesn't.
So survival isn't because the environment selected the winner, it's because the winner already had the right equipment to handle the challenge.
Exactly. The focus shifts entirely. It's not about an external force creating something new. It's about the organism's own pre-programmed information, allowing it to adapt.
This changes everything. It's not a random process anymore, it's a design system responding to a problem.
It is. Think about a modern car. If you start driving up a steep hill, a sensor detects the strain on the engine.
And the car's computer automatically gives it more gas to maintain speed.
Right. The hill didn't select for a more powerful engine. The car was pre-programmed by its designers with a system to detect and respond to that exact challenge. The intelligence was in the car all along.
That's a great analogy. So the ability to adapt is built in, not created by the struggle.
And we see these incredible pre-programmed systems all over biology. Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins talks about plant sensors called phytochromes.
What do they do?
They're amazing. They don't just detect light, they can detect different wavelengths of light, they can sense temperature, and based on that input, they can completely alter gene expression.
So the plant can literally change its own biology, its growth patterns, its flowering time, just based on the light it's receiving.
Yes, it's an incredibly sophisticated pre-programmed system designed to allow the plant to thrive in changing conditions. The information was already there, waiting to be activated.
You see the same kind of thing in the human body.
Absolutely. The sources point out that neurobiologists often describe the human body as a highly advanced, controlled system, almost like a robot. Our senses are the input sensors.
So if you touch a hot stove, the sensors in your fingers send a signal.
They send an urgent signal to the central processor, the brain, which then decides on the correct response. Pull your hand back immediately.
And the ability to feel pain, the nerve pathways, the muscle reflexes, all of that had to be in place before you touched the stove. The stove didn't create the response system.
Not at all. It was all pre-programmed. And this leads to a really powerful summary from Randy Guglielsa.
What's his take?
He says that living things are programmed with this power to deal with their environments. The environment is just a problem or an opportunity that the organism is already programmed to try and handle.
So adaptation isn't evolution in action, it's design in action.
That's the alternative model being presented. The organism is deploying its built-in designed resilience.
Which brings us back to those three big questions about natural selection. First, what does it actually do?
According to this view, it does nothing. It's just a term for who survives based on the programming they already have.
Second, who or what is the intelligence doing the selecting?
The intelligence is the original designer, the one who wrote the code in the first place.
And third, where did the information come from?
It was pre-programmed from the beginning. It didn't arise from a random, undirected process.
So the conclusion from the sources is that natural selection, as this all-powerful creative force, is really a man-made concept designed to do one thing.
Yes, to replace the power and intelligence of God.
And the alternative model is the programmed or intelligent designer model. Life was created by God for a purpose, with all the information needed for life pre-programmed right into the DNA.
And the evidence for that is the incredible, observable complexity of life itself, which points back to the verse, I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
That's a profound shift in perspective, from random chance to intricate design.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of a deep dive that is packed with foundational information, challenging some really big ideas about where we come from.
And absorbing knowledge like this is so important, but it's really just the first step. The next step is to take that knowledge and learn how to use it, how to defend it.
That's why we want to strongly encourage you to continue that journey by visiting Tyrannus Hall Bible College. This is about equipping yourself to move from just knowing things to being able to stand firm on them.
It's so crucial. To take that next step, visit Tyrannus Hall Bible College, and you can use the following link. Tyrannus Hall Bible College, THBC, https://kk2020.store/shop Tyrannus Hall Bible College, THWA. That link is right there in the description for you.
All right, we've talked about the theoretical mechanisms. Now let's get into the hard data. Let's talk genetics.
Yes, let's. Because for decades, there has been one statistic that has dominated this whole conversation.
I think I know which one you mean. The idea that human and chimp DNA is 98 or 99% identical.
That's the one. It's presented as fact in textbooks, museums, documentaries. It's everywhere. The American Association for the Advancement of Science was still pushing the 99% similar figure in its journal as recently as 2012.
But the source material we're working from says this figure is, well, it's just wrong. It presents 5 facts to completely dismantle that claim.
Yes, and it's really important to follow the history here. Fact number 1. That 1 to 2% claim actually dates all the way back to 1975.
1975, that's before we could even sequence entire genomes, right? The technology didn't exist.
Not even close. They were using much cruder, indirect methods. Which leads to fact number 2. Those early comparisons were incredibly selected and limited.
What do you mean by selected?
It means they intentionally compared only the parts of the genomes they already knew were very similar, like certain protein-coding genes, and they completely ignored the vast regions that were different.
So it was like comparing two books by only looking at the chapters, are almost identical, and then claiming the entire books are 99% the same.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
It was a biased comparison from the start.
And when did we actually get the ability to compare the whole books, so to speak?
Well, that's fact number 3. The first draft of the human genome was published in 2001, and the chimp genome followed in 2005. So the claim predates the actual data by 30 years.
Okay, so once we had the full genomes, the comparisons must have started to change things.
They did. That's fact number 4. By 2007, new research was already showing the real difference was closer to 5%, not 1%. But the old number was sticky. The media just kept repeating 1% for years.
But 5% is still a long way from where the science apparently ended up.
A very long way. And that brings us to fact number 5, which is the real bombshell. When scientists started comparing the whole genome, not just the cherry-picked parts, but everything, the differences were found to be over 20%.
20%? That's not a small correction. That's a completely different number, a massive difference.
It's a game changer. It's a difference 20 times larger than what the public is told. Let's put some specific numbers on this from the experts in our sources.
Please do.
Back in 2002, Dr. Roy Britton published a study that already put the difference at 5% just by counting something called indels.
Indels, what are those?
They stand for insertions and deletions. So this isn't just a single letter change, like an A being swapped for a G. This is where a whole chunk of genetic code, maybe hundreds of letters long, is either inserted into one genome or completely missing from the other.
So these are major structural differences, not just little typos.
Huge structural differences, and they have massive functional consequences. But even that 5% figure was just the beginning.
Because then we have Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins's work.
Right. In 2013, he did a very rigorous direct comparison of chimp chromosomes to their human counterparts. And he used methods that were actually designed to maximize the similarity. He gave the comparison every possible advantage.
And even under those best-case scenario conditions.
Even then, he found the chimpanzee genome was only 70% similar to human overall.
70%, so a 30% difference.
A 30% difference. Dr. Jay Weil, who has a PhD in nuclear chemistry, confirmed that same figure. He said genome-wide, it's only 70% similar. That completely shatters the 99% myth.
A 30% gap is not a cousin. That's a completely different operating system. Which brings us to the fun with math section, or the probability problem.
Yes, because generating that much new information by chance is where the theory hits a mathematical brick wall.
Let's quantify it. How many actual letter differences are we talking about?
Well, Brian Thomas from the Institute for Creation Research did the math. Even if you're extremely generous and say the similarity is 85%, which is much higher than 70%, that remaining 15% difference still amounts to 450 million genetic letters that distinguish humans from chimps.
450 million. That's not a number you can just gloss over. That's an entire library of new, unique information.
It is. Thomas's conclusion is that no known natural process could begin to write such an immense library of information, especially not in the 6 million years or so that the evolutionary model allows for.
And this is where the probabilities get absolutely crazy, right? We talked about how rare beneficial information-adding mutations are.
We did. The odds are about 1 in 10 million. That's 107.27 tellers. But the problem is you don't just need one. To build something new and complex, you need a whole series of related mutations, one building on the other in a specific sequence.
Okay, so walk us through the math on that. What are the odds of getting two related beneficial mutations in a row?
It's the probability of the first one times the probability of the second. So it's 170/50 times 177 times. That's 1014, or 1 chance in 100 trillion.
1 in 100 trillion for just 2 steps.
So just 2 steps. For 3 related mutations, the odds become $1021. That's 1 in a billion trillion.
These numbers are just getting meaningless. They're too big to even comprehend.
They are. 4 related mutations would be $1020. And to get the kind of wholesale changes required for human evolution, you might need something like 10 related mutations for just one new system.
And the odds of that would be?
The odds would be 1070, that's a 1 with 70 zeros after it.
To put that in perspective, how many atoms are there in the entire known universe?
The estimate is around $10. So the odds of getting just 10 related beneficial mutations by chance are approaching the number of atoms in the universe. It's statistically indistinguishable from zero. The mechanism just isn't powerful enough.
So the genetics show a 30% gap, and the math shows it's impossible to bridge that gap by random mutation. So the last pillar holding up the story has to be the fossils.
It has to be. The fossil record is supposed to be the proof where we can actually see the transitions happening over time. The sources call them the famous celebrities.
But the history of these celebrity fossils is a little shaky, isn't it?
To put it mildly, you have cases of outright fraud, like Piltdown Man. For 40 years, it was celebrated as the missing link from England, but it turned out to be a modern human skull combined with an orangutan jaw.
And then there was Nebraska Man, which was constructed from a single tooth.
Yes, and based on that one tooth, artists drew a whole ape man and his family. Later, they found the rest of the skeleton. The tooth belonged to an extinct pig.
A pig. So this shows there's a huge desire, a huge bias to find these links, even if the evidence is flimsy.
Immense pressure. And even with fossils that are real, like the Neanderthals, the story has completely changed. They used to be depicted as brutish, hunched-over cavemen.
But now we know they were just
Human, right. Fully human. They buried their dead, they made art, they had complex tools. They were just a variation of the human family, not a primitive ancestor.
Okay, so if Piltdown was a fraud, Nebraska Man was a pig, and Neanderthals were human, that leaves the biggest celebrity of all, Lucy.
Australopithecus afarensis. She is the absolute cornerstone of the human evolution narrative in every textbook. She's presented as the one who proves our ancestors walked upright.
But the sources here present a long list of anatomical features that suggest she was not a bipedal ancestor at all.
A very long list. She had a chimp-sized body, sure, but look closer. Long, curved fingers and toes, perfect for grasping branches.
So for climbing trees.
Definitely for climbing. She had a knuckle-walking wrist, just like modern apes. Her ribcage was cone-shaped like an ape's, not barrel-shaped like a human's, which you need for the mechanics of walking.
And what about her hips and feet? That seems crucial for walking.
Crucial. And her pelvic bone was flat, not bowl-shaped like a human pelvis, which is essential for balance when you're walking on two legs. Her big toe was also opposable, like a thumb on your foot, a grasping foot, not a walking foot.
All of that points to an animal that was very comfortable in the trees. But the definitive evidence, the real nail in the coffin for her bipedal status, comes from somewhere you can't even see from the outside.
Yes. The inner ear canals.
The inner ear, how does that tell you how something walked?
Your inner ear contains your vestibular system. It's like a biological gyroscope. It controls your sense of balance and posture. The shape and orientation of those canals are directly related to how an animal moves.
So a creature that walks on two legs would have a different inner ear structure than one that climbs or walks on four.
Completely different. And Dr. Fred Spoor used CAT scans to look at the inner ear canals of Australopithecines like Lucy.
And the result?
The result was conclusive. Their inner ear canals were structured just like modern apes. He stated they did not walk habitually upright in the human sense. Their balance system was for a life of climbing.
That's incredible. That's objective, internal evidence that directly contradicts the textbook story.
It's why anatomist Charles Oxnard, way back in 1983, said that the Australopithecines should be irrevocably removed from a place in the evolution of human bipedalism. But the textbooks just haven't caught up.
So the biggest star of the show turns out to be an extinct ape. And this pattern of hype followed by correction seems to continue. Right. Let's talk about Ida.
Ida. This was a more recent case. A beautifully preserved fossil, 95% intact, from Germany.
And in 2009, it was unveiled with a massive media blitz. Headlines around the world called it the missing link, the eighth wonder of the world.
The hype was unbelievable.
Yeah.
There was a TV special, a book. It was presented as the final proof.
But how long did that last?
About 100 days. After all the fanfare, other scientists got a chance to actually study the fossil, and they quickly realized it was another major blunder.
It wasn't a human ancestor?
Not even close. It was identified as an extinct lemur. It had no place on the human branch of the tree at all.
It's another case of what the sources call fossil imagination. The belief comes first, and the evidence is made to fit.
The observation is simple. If you believe in evolution, your imagination will see evolution even when the bones tell a different story.
So we've gone through the mechanisms, the genetics, the math, and the fossils. And at every turn, the source material has presented a serious, evidence-based challenge to the standard story.
It has. And when you put all of this together, the lack of a mechanism to create new information, the massive genetic gap, the mathematical impossibility, and the reevaluation of the key fossils, it leads to a very strong conclusion about our education system.
What's the bottom line?
The sources conclude that the education system and the media are either completely out of touch with the actual science, or they are deliberately passing on false or incomplete information to protect and promote a belief system, what they call evolutionism.
That's a serious charge, that the system is actively deceiving students into believing a false picture of the evidence.
It's a very serious charge. And the implication is that we have a responsibility to fix it. We need to train students to do better analysis and apply critical thinking skills so they can see through these flawed narratives.
The problem, as David Nobel pointed out, is that the secular classroom is often used as a platform for indoctrination. It's not a neutral space.
It's not. And this creates a vacuum of knowledge, which the sources connect to that verse in Hosea. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. A lack of foundational knowledge can lead to a destruction of faith and purpose.
So what's the strategic plan to counter this?
The Creation Training Initiative, or CTI, has a clear mission: to equip the next generation to believe, trust, and defend God's Word.
It's not just about believing, but being able to defend that belief.
Exactly. The vision is to build an army of Christian educators, to have a trained teacher in every Christian school and church who can effectively teach this material, so students are prepared before they ever get to a university classroom.
And the sources lay out 6 specific things that students must learn to be fully equipped.
Yes. The first 2 are the spiritual foundation. 1. Know, share, and defend the gospel. 2. Learn practical apologetics, having solid biblical answers for the tough questions.
And the next 2 are about intellectual rigor.
Right. 3 is developing real critical thinking skills to spot bad arguments. And 4 is mastering the scientific evidence about origins, the very things we've been discussing today.
And the last 2 are defensive skills.
Crucial defensive skills. 5 is understanding presuppositional apologetics, which is recognizing that everyone starts with faith assumptions, even the atheist. And 6 is learning to recognize and refute compromise, so you don't end up with a watered-down, inconsistent worldview.
This isn't just a theoretical plan, is it? These training initiatives are happening.
They are. The sources mention things like a 5-day apologetics training course that brought together pastors, teachers, and parents. The goal is to scale this up and build that army of educators.
It's clear from this deep dive that having this kind of detailed, critical knowledge is absolutely essential for anyone who wants to seriously engage with the origins debate.
It is. We hope this has armed you with the facts and the framework to see the profound evidence for intelligent design and to challenge the narrative that you've been given.
This is the challenge, then. Don't just be a passive listener. Become an active learner. Equip yourself and equip others. To do that, we strongly urge you one last time to join this movement of knowledge. Visit Tyrannus Hall Bible College. Use the following link: Tyrannus Hall Bible College, THBC, thpsps.kk2020.storeshop Tyrannus Hall Bible College. You will find that link in the description.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the evidence. It's been a crucial conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Tyrannus Hall Bible College.